Have you heard of a film called Brain Dead / Dead Alive? Depends on the version that you get.
I've only heard of it in the sense that I've seen it on your watch list.
Oh, right. Okay, well, here's something that I didn't actually know the first time I watched it. Like,
Right.
I just watched the film because I was wanting to watch it. I didn't pay attention to who the director was. But let's just say the director directed King Kong. He also directed Lord of the Rings.
What?
He also directed The Hobbit.
No, fuck it. Hi, Sarah.
It's Peter Jackson, dude.
No, it's not.
It is, honestly.
Are you being serious?
1992, Peter Jackson, seriously. You can even look on Letterboxd to show I'm not lying. Brain Dead, 1992, Peter Jackson. Like,
Second,
I
that-
could not
Oh my god,
believe
it
it.
actually is.
I couldn't believe it. Like, he is directed, like, the gnarliest, grossest zombie film. Well, not the gnarliest, but one of the grossest zombie films ever, and it's Peter Jackson. The man with the giant monkey. I can't believe it, dude. Such a good film. I had so much fun watching that bloody film.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Real Podcasters, the show where we talk all things movies, TV shows, video games, and a bunch of other things in no particular order. My name's Regan, as ever, and I'm joined once again by my utterly delightful co-host. It's Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Regan. It's actually nice to get a compliment again. I thought we were just going back to, like, the insults again, but, you know, I'll take it.
I mean, like I did promise last week that we were just going to go back to insults again, but I thought, I'm going to be nice this week. I would like to be nice to Dan for once.
You see, but what our audience don't know is you're only being nice to me because you've subjected me to Doctor Who Series 11, so that's why he's being nice, everyone, because he feels
Spoilers,
bad.
Dan, spoilers. We are going to be talking about that for like another 2 weeks or something. Oh, it's going to be fun for one of us. Not us, the audience.
You know the film Us?
Yes, I haven't seen it, but I know of it.
Well, if you know the general plot, that they have, like, I think they're called the Tethered, but it's basically like their alter ego kind of thing.
Okay.
I think our alter egos are just gonna, like, find other egos to be attached to when we start talking about Doctor Who Series 11.
It's all been building to this. I cannot wait. But instead, we'll talk about something else this week. We're talking about the latest attempt at a Marvel movie in 2022. That is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Biggest question is very simple, yet also rather complicated. Does this film actually work? Both just in terms of what's been going on this year with Marvel, which has just been a complete train wreck, quite frankly. But also a bunch of other things. So we'll have spoiler-free thoughts and spoiler-filled thoughts on that later in this episode. Timecodes, as ever, are in the description. But we're going to kick things off with our special presentation, you know, Marvel Studios style. It is Dan Dissects episode, was it 2, 3? I've got no idea.
That's like, I don't know, I've already lost bloody count. Okay,
yes.
rather than like go through like a different, like, I think the last one I did was like just like a gore thing or something like that. Well, in this
Something like
Dissects episode, we're actually going to be doing a film.
Oh.
Just a film.
Just a film.
So, this is a film called Possum from 2018.
Oh, God, I recognise the poster for that. The weird little spider
Yeah.
thing.
This is by Matthew Holness, starring Sean Harris and Alan Armstrong. Fun fact here, I didn't know that Sean Harris was in Prometheus.
Really?
Yeah, he's Fifield in Prometheus.
He's,
You know, the guy who loves rocks.
yeah, he's one of the many idiots in that film, of which there is many, many, many.
I'm pretty sure, like, his character quotes, I love rocks.
I love rocks. They're so
And it's
good.
clear that you two don't give a shit about rocks.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah, he's in Prometheus. I was like, wow. Okay, then.
Wow.
So, the plot of this film involves disgraced puppeteer Philip returning to his childhood home to confront his wicked stepfather Morris. Philip must unravel the secrets that have tormented him his entire life. This is 85 minutes long, so it's pretty short for a feature. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into some thoughts.
Okay.
If somebody asked me to, like, describe this film as, like, a little plot thing, I could only give them 2 words. Nightmare fuel.
Nightmare Fuel as in good or Nightmare Fuel as in bad? Because this is a
Oh,
film that I've been
good.
very interested. Okay, good. Okay, I was gonna say because I was very interested in seeing it. I just haven't got
Oh,
around to
you
it as
gotta,
ever.
like, holy hell, you gotta. So, it is just absolute nightmare fuel, Regan. Right? Like, it has a really eerie score, and it's yet quite simplistic, but the way the film is shot, which is shot on Kodak 35mm film, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's nice and, like, grainy, nice and grimy, really gets with the horror atmosphere and the style of what it's trying to go for. The character of Philip doesn't smile once in this film. He's just miserable, and I love that. There isn't actually, like, any dialogue. Like, there is dialogue, but it's not what you'd expect in, like, a feature film where characters interact with each other quite a lot. There's actually just very little interaction between the 2 characters.
Right.
There's nothing. So, like, the script must literally just be, like, 5 or 6 pages long, if that. It is, the amount is teeny. And I mean, you're not even talking, like, an in-depth conversation. It's kept super brief.
So it might as well just be mostly a silent film then.
To be honest, I would really like to see how it would work as a silent film, because I think it has that style, and the way that it's shot would just make it super creepy if it was silent. Though I'd still want the score on there, obviously, because I think that would just make it even more terrifying. But yeah, I will say this, though, and this is just more of a nitpick, that I think it probably would have worked a little bit better if it was like a 30-minute short, because it really struggles to kind of do more with it being a feature film. Like, there is an idea there, but there are a lot of, like, sequences that are repeated or, like, reversed and stuff just to sort of fill in the runtime of a feature film. Which I suppose works for the style of the film, as you'll see when you get to watching it.
Eventually.
But I think if it was a 30-minute short, it just would have been easier to sort of sit through for most people, because it's quite mixed with some people. I loved it personally, because I'm all about nightmare fuel films.
I'm just curious because I kind of figured that the poster was very clickbaity, but is the
Oh,
weird...
no. Oh, no.
So
No,
the weird
no, no.
spindly spider thing is actually a thing in this.
Nah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the spindly spider thing is a creepy puppet, like the creepiest feckin' puppet I've seen in a film.
I'm already starting to shiver.
Like, I'm not going to spoil it because I want you to watch this, because I'm going to be very upset if you don't like this film.
Challenge accepted.
But there are some, like, scenes where this puppet, like, when Philip wakes up and the puppet is, like, next to him, and all you see is, like, the appendage legs, and you're just like, oh, fuck no. No. And, like, it's pinned against the wall, it's in the bag, and you see, like, the leg, like, slowly coming out the bag. You're just like, oh, no, just no. Philip, just freaking burn it, will you? Like, set it ablaze. Just do what McCready did in The Thing and just set it alight, will you? Like, my God. Great plot twist in it.
Yeah.
Really good plot twist.
Okay.
Won't say more than that.
Good.
Really good
Thank
plot
you.
twist.
Appreciate it.
Ooh. This is going to be a bit of a mouthful for me. But
There's a joke in there
essentially,
somewhere.
the film... Oh, you dirty bastard. But essentially, this film is like the real horror of actually dealing with horror.
Right. How do you mean?
Yeah. Well,
Or is that like a
It's-
spoiler?
no, I wouldn't say it's a spoiler, but essentially it kind of leads into what the film is about, with just Philip's trauma and stuff like that. Obviously, when you watch the film, you get a better understanding of what I mean. But holy shit balls, you know what it is, right? I think when I checked this out on Rotten Tomatoes, because I wasn't sure if this had, like, ever gotten critically acclaimed or anything like that.
I doubt
Oh
it.
yeah, it is. It is.
Oh, is it?
It's like 91% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, but, like, I've not known this film very long at all. Like, I just discovered it. I think it was, like, on Netflix first, but now it's on Prime Video, so you can watch it on Prime Video.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought, like, oh, it's one of these, like, you know, independent horror films that's never really going to get much praise, but I was wrong. It's really, really good. So it gets a thumbs up from me. So I highly recommend it. And again, it is pretty short for a feature film. I mean, 85 minutes, pretty brief.
You know what it is? I'm just looking at the poster because the reason why I asked was, you know, because of like the weird spindly spider. But every single time I looked at the poster, I actually thought, because this is why I was questioning it, was because I honestly thought it was like a girl just sort of like crouched into like a ball. But then I'm looking at it and it's absolutely not.
Oh no!
It honestly just looks like a handbag with some like spider legs coming out of it. Is that a fair?
Right.
Oh no! Is that like a spoiler? And it's actually a handbag with legs.
Right.
Oh
I'll
no!
give. I won't spoil too much, right? I'm really
Yeah.
gonna have to kind of think, right? But essentially, Philip carries around this like brown duffel bag with the puppet inside,
Right. Okay.
and as I mentioned, there is a shot where like the spindly spider puppet, like kind of like comes out of the bag in just horrific fashion. Won't say more than that because it's just absolutely nightmarish.
Yeah, I bet.
But another nightmarish thing, I'm gonna have to like remember this, so I'm quickly googling it.
Do.
But Philip has a book, right? As a disgraced puppeteer, he wrote this like children's book of Possum, right? So it has just the most terrifying like story ever. Little possum, black as sin, bag is open, growing wider. What's inside? Is it man or spider?
Uh-huh.
It's nightmarish, dude.
Okay.
Like, honestly, when I watched that for the first time, when it finished, I was just like, what the actual fuck? And again, a second rewatch of it, I'm still in that opinion. It is terrifying.
Yeah.
One of the scariest, most unsettling films I've ever watched. And I've seen some pretty
You
messed up
absolutely
films.
have.
Like, I mean, I've seen director Peter Jackson just with a whole new take on zombies. Seen some pretty messed up films. But yeah, it's...
and then some.
Oh yeah, some not so good, but yeah. It's really good, so I highly recommend that you watch it, Regan, because it's super good. But yeah, that is my Dan Dissects for this week.
Yes, so that is Dan Dissects episode 2, the episode 2-ing, we'll call it. Yeah, usually there would be a Regan reviews thing. You aren't getting that this week. No. I haven't
only
watched
watched
anything.
one thing.
Well, I've watched one thing, which is what we're going to talk about now, which is Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Now, let's be real here, okay? Like we've spoken about a lot of Marvel this year. Very little we've actually liked, quite frankly. And this being, I actually forgot the final film in Phase 4, which is fine for me to forget because nothing's happened in Phase 4. And obviously with the tragic loss of Chadwick Boseman just a couple of years ago, obviously one of the bigger questions is, can this film actually still work despite losing such a great actor? So, basic breakdown of the plot, spoiler free. This is about a year after the death of King T'Challa, who dies from just something. To keep it very, very big.
Undisclosed illness.
Yeah, I feel like it is. I'd assume it's probably cancer. I would have thought, much like in real life. And so Wakanda is still reeling from this tragic loss. They don't really know how to move on. The Black Panther mantle is just nowhere to be found.
It's relict. Totally relict.
And eventually they have to fight for themselves when a new threat arises in the form of Namor, or Namor, however you want to pronounce them, and the underwater nation of Talakan. Wakanda must forge a new path if they are to safeguard their own future. Before we get into the spoiler-free stuff on this, I'm curious on your thoughts of the first film, because we haven't really spoken about that one. What did you think of the first one?
Well, I mean, it's been a while since I've watched like the original Black Panther film, so I probably should have like sort of reminded myself of it just before seeing this, but I just didn't have the bloody time.
No, you didn't.
But yeah, I like it. I can't say like it's an exceptional film because it's really not. I mean, there are parts in the first Black Panther where I think like, okay, this is going on for a bit too long. My attention span is kind of, wasn't really till like the fight between, I think it's like T'Challa or T'Challa and Killmonger. That's where it just sort of like piqued my interest a bit, but I like it for the most part. I don't know about you.
That's interesting how you phrase it like that, because my feelings on it are pretty similar to how it was with Shang-Chi last year, where the first two acts are really, really great, like really damn good.
Yeah.
And then I lost my interest as soon as the third act rocks up with the CGI rhinos and the PS2 cutscenes at the end. Like them two fighting in the caves of Wakanda, T'Challa and Killmonger. I didn't care at all. I'd lost all emotional investments, and it's a sort of film where it's like I completely understand why one would love this film, because of course, just like look at it. As a film, and it certainly had its issues, and there was definitely an issue with pacing. And it wasn't until in retrospect where I liked T'Challa quite a bit, because I didn't like him that much in the first film. I thought he was way too stoic.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the point, frankly. Unlike with a character like, say, Captain Marvel, who's stoic from beginning to end and is stupid.
Captain Plot.
Yeah, I didn't get him there. He's pretty stoic for most of the film until the end, when he realises what kind of person he's supposed to be, which I really like.
I mean, when did the first Black Panther film come out? I want to say like 2014.
2018.
Okay, so I was 4 years early.
Yeah, you were. No, it was about 2 or 3 months before Infinity War. So, very, very rapid. But yeah, I think I've seen it twice. Much like with a lot of other Marvel movies these days, I don't tend to go back to them that much.
I'm definitely
anymore.
the same. Like, for some reason, when I go to watch like an MCU film on rewatch, like Black Panther is never really there, and it probably should be, because I do like the film. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just the issue with the pacing, that it's like, well, I could just watch something that has just kept my attention span all the way through, like Captain America: The Winter Soldier, because I love that film.
Yeah, as do a lot of people. But now you get to Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, that's made under such traumatizing circumstances, not just COVID, but also the loss of your lead actor. What the hell do you do with it? And so I was already really skeptical about that, but going into it, because I watched it last night, you watched it today, as of when we're recording this. But I was also incredibly cynical, because this year has been crap for Marvel. Like, bar 90% of Moon Knight, I've not liked anything at all.
No,
it's the first year, I think, in quite a while where I don't think I've liked anything from this franchise, and it has really made me question, has this longevity just been gone ever since Endgame, which frankly you could argue should have been the final film in this franchise. You could have just ended it there, and it would have ended on such a high note.
Oh yeah, it would have been such a high note ending, but Marvel being Marvel, and
we also wouldn't have gotten
studios.
No Way Home, which
we wouldn't have. Yeah.
I really need to rewatch again. Like, I really want to.
But yeah, I see what you mean. Like, it's been pretty naff for Marvel films. I mean, bar Moon Knight. I mean, I loved Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm. I know you did.
But like Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness, that was just a bit of a flop for me. Like, the trailers were like, oh, this has got like Evil Dead residue all over it. I'm gonna love this. And seeing it, I was like, well, it's residue, all right. Not very good residue.
And then there's Thor, which I still maintain is the worst film in this franchise. Frankly, I still really don't like it.
You know what? I mean, I hate the fact that they've taken, like, who could be honestly quite a serious character and turned him into an utter clown.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Because he honestly is. I'm sorry, right? But, like, Takia, that film just isn't funny when you've got, like, stupid gags every 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like, the thing with the axe, I was done. I thought, okay, I can see what this film is going to be now. Mm-hmm. A laughingstock. The screaming goats, the jealous Stormbreaker. Natalie Portman's character, who no one really gives a shit for because she's not developed enough. Yeah.
No,
Thor the God Butcher is just probably the only highlight of the film, and he isn't used enough.
no,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. So obviously going into this, I was assuming that it was just going to be pretty mid, because
Yeah.
even like critically, it's done pretty much the same as most of the films this year. So I'm like, right, I'm not banking on that at
I
all.
can check. I mean, I think it's like 3.8 on Letterboxd.
Yeah, and it's like it was about 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, which yeah, I mean, I shouldn't rely on that too often, especially for myself. But it's just
Yeah.
nice to see. Um,
Yeah, it's around the same as like the other one that's 84%.
so as I say, it went in really cynical. I want to hear your thoughts first. Your spoiler-free thoughts on Wakanda Forever. What?
Much like you, I was pretty, well, I'm going to say like worried, because when they announced that they were going to do a sequel, I thought like, well, how can they? Like they've lost Chadwick. How are they going to like, if they do make a film, how on earth are they going to like address the fact that he's gone? And like, how are they going to address the whole Black Panther thing? So I was expecting like, I was expecting a typical Marvel film, I suppose, like, considering Doctor Strange, and so I was expecting, a film pretty comedic.
Yeah.
But this one, by God, it really does something different. Like, it's none of this stupid comedic crap. It addresses serious issues. It actually has consequence. Whereas the others, they do something, that has a consequence, and it's just like, ugh. But with this one, you actually feel for the characters in the film. You actually feel for the story. You feel for the issues. Like, it had my whole investment, Regan. And I'm going to just say it now, this is the best Marvel film of this year.
Which isn't saying much,
Yeah.
frankly.
Because we really haven't, had much in the way of Marvel films.
Not really.
But yeah, it's definitely the best Marvel film this year. So I don't know what the next Marvel release is next.
Ant-Man 3.
Ant-Man 3. Okay, well, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be the best Marvel film of this year.
And probably next year.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah, obviously without delving into spoilers too much, I really like the way that it addresses the absence of Chadwick. And I thought, okay, this is actually quite good. You've got me. Because usually when like when like a Marvel film starts, I'm paying attention, right? But with this one, like, I was really like hooked in it. I thought, oh, this is different. You've got me.
Yeah.
You've got me hooked. And I mean, for a runtime, it's like 2 hours and a bit. It just felt really short.
2 hours
flew.
41.
Yeah, it just flew for me, in all honesty. As I say, like, I didn't drift off once. I was like really close to the screen. Because I picked like a saver seat because, like all the VIP ones were taken.
Naturally.
So I was pretty close, and like my eyes were just fixated on the screen. Like, it never drifted away. Just straight into the film.
Aye.
So yeah, obviously we'll go at a bit more depth when we talk at the spoilers, but your sort of spoiler-free impression of it.
Yeah, well, if people are interested in reading a written review from me, there is one on my Letterboxd profile. I wrote it, I think it was about
Shameless plug.
Yeah. I think I got home to be honest, it was about 2 hours after the film actually finished, because buses and driving is a nightmare. But got out there, you can read it. It's pretty extensive and spoiler free. But yeah, really, really cynical, really, really worried. In reality, I didn't need to be. I thought this film was great.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where I was like, I'm worried if this is better than the first film, because does that sound disrespectful to the legacy of Chadwick? Or do I say it's not as good and just be branded something else? Just say what I want, just be as honest as I want, and I did really like it. I still have issues with it, which we'll get into a little bit later, because they're not really spoilery, but they involve aspects of spoilers.
Yeah.
And something that I wasn't entirely on board with. But overall, I came out of it thinking this was something special. Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, I mean, it's like you see, and I noticed this even with the first film, bar the third act, both these films are quite happy to just do their own thing. They don't feel like your typical superhero MCU kind of thing,
No, definitely not.
which we really bloody need at this point because,
Oh, I mean, like, it's Marvel's formula. Like, it's just when you see the same formula in every single MCU film, bar this, I'm glad they just did their own thing. Like, even the first film did its own thing, even if the first film, well, in my humble opinion, I think the second film is just a teensy-weensy bit better because it just is.
yeah, because I think one idea that this film does really well is put the characters in the same position as the audience was when we heard the news that Chadwick had passed away. The
Yeah.
entire film explores grief.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
what that does to someone, how it can take you from one place or the other, how it leaves you trapped in the past and you need to move on. It is absolutely all about that, and I think that was a really smart move because I think you couldn't recast the character even though they'd only been around for a couple of years. Like literally, was it 3, 4 movies that even appeared in? That's it. Which I suppose in like some other context that sounds amazing, but for Marvel it's like 2, 3 years. That's about it.
Yeah.
But I thought I was very smart to not do that. You also couldn't just write them out so that they're off on a mission elsewhere because you cannot, because you'll just spend the entire film saying, well, why aren't you over here? It's the same with any MCU film post the first Avengers film, where it's like, well, why aren't the Avengers here? They could be dealing with this, and you're like, and I think at one point it's like, oh, this is kind of above their pay grade. I'm like, shut up, like that.
Oh,
I mean that is a
yeah.
terrible excuse.
Yeah, I'm glad that it was written the way it was because that actually feels like it feels that the audience deserve that. It's not just some shoddy like cheap written out exit, you know. It's just like, oh, he's off on a mission elsewhere. I don't like stuff like that. I think it's cheap.
Oh, definitely. Major, like special mention to 3 people in particular. You've got Letitia Wright as Shuri, whose character is basically been retconned because I found her so annoying in the other films. Here, she goes through so much, and I mean, I love her as a character, and I think she's fantastic. Angela Bassett as well. It gave
Oh, yeah.
one of the best performances I've seen all year. Like, I mean, everything out of her mouth could have been a soliloquy. Frankly, she's absolutely tremendous. And Tenoch as Namor, really liked him in
Yeah.
this. Not a discount version of Aquaman, which is nice.
No.
It's so nice to get this character like on the big screen. He's really interesting. I love.
It's about time. Like, it's
Yeah.
about bloody time.
But it's also they don't shy away from. Yeah, he has little wings on his ankles in the comics. Let's just do that here, and I loved it. I thought it was great. And the third act, I was emotionally invested in what was going on, which I didn't have with the first film. Issues wise, without going into spoilers, this film, much like with the last one, still has a major issue with VFX, especially towards the end. With in particular the Black Panther costume that we see in this film. Again, no spoilers with who's wearing it, although if you have common sense, we all know. It still looks like it's rendering while you're watching it. It never looked particularly real, especially with lighting. Though I will give them this, it is nice that it's a fight in the daylight as opposed to nighttime again. I quite like that. But it did show pretty badly. And even though this film is 2 hours and 41 minutes, I personally felt that in places because it does drop like in terms of pacing. Not because there's no action going on, because I don't mind, because I absolutely have no issues with superhero films that don't feel so obliged to just be all out action. There can just be small character moments of them talking, and a lot of time it works in this film. Other times it just sags.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of that is basically nitpicky because it doesn't really harm the film. Even like the silly VFX stuff for me, because it doesn't, especially now, because I feel quite bad at any time I bring it up, especially because I know when we did our news segments for this podcast a few months back, and I definitely remember bringing up the news story about the multiple VFX artists that publicly called out Marvel and their working conditions. And
Yeah.
since then, there's been a major shift in the way that we react to VFX on these movies, not just because of COVID, but clearly because of the way they've been treated by the higher ups. So any issues with this, I can't really put on the artists, frankly, because they were probably
No.
rushed off their feet with way too many hours, way too
Well,
little
that's the
time.
thing though. Like, I think it's magical. Like, you see something that involves visual effects, and it can be like 30 seconds long, but for like a VFX artist, that probably would have taken like 3 hours to do,
Or even days. It's
like
entirely
days.
possible.
So I'm pretty much in the same boat as you, Regan, with that. Like, though I didn't really notice. Well, it's not that I didn't notice it. I just didn't pay much attention to like the visual effects,
Yeah.
like being a bit ropey. But I still, I mean, the only instance I noticed of it, and we'll get into with spoilers, was the end bit, and I'll mention what it is. But I thought it looked a bit odd.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's about as much as we can say without going into spoilers. I also really liked the mid credit scene. I thought
Oh yeah,
I mean, I was quite cautious with it because I had a feeling what it was going to be, but it's a nice kind of one. Frankly, it's not like, oh, we're going to set up 70 different films. It's
yeah.
there's this. I'm like, well done.
Like
I like
it's
that.
funny how the film is different from most Marvel films, and then even like the mid-credit scene is different in itself. Like with other Marvel films, like take the Eternals for one example. Like I can't even remember what it sets up, but it's some bloody character who Bill Skarsgård just sets up this other character for an Eternals film, like a future Eternals film or something. Can't remember the
I
bloody
can't
name
even
of it.
remember, frankly. I'd like to never talk about Eternals. I actually forgot that Eternals came out last year. I was like, wasn't there a fourth one that came out last year? Nah, it's fine. It didn't come out. Oh yeah, it actually did. But yes, I think that's about as much as we can say spoiler free. So we'll go into spoilers. There's not like some like earth shattering stuff that's in this. It's quite, as I say, it's quite different. So I've got like a couple of talking points here and there.
Yeah.
We'll cut to Shuri first. Now, as I say, I found this character really annoying and just ridiculous in the other films. Like, I didn't find her very funny either. Like, especially in the first film when she does that, like so many outdated like memes and stuff. Like, what are those? To T'Challa's flip flops, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, it's almost as bad as the screaming goats from this year. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop it. But here obviously, given the context of losing Chadwick, Letitia Wright is shot right to the forefront of the film, and she is the focus. And I think in a way that the actress never really planned on being, frankly, and she absolutely nails it. Quite frankly,
yeah.
I know if it's been said behind the scenes, especially with like COVID vaccines and the way that she's reacted to it. It doesn't really matter, frankly, because she's an absolutely terrific actress in this film, and Shuri is is probably one of my favorite characters in the film, which is so nice to see, given where we came from, because the amount that she's going through emotionally, and it's not just I'm just crying in the corner and stuff like that. She's like burying herself in her work so she doesn't have to grieve. That's a very realistic way of doing things. I mean, hell, I did that. When my granddad passed away like years ago,
Yeah.
for a while I was like, I'm not going to talk about it, I'm just going to do this instead, and it doesn't help. It really doesn't
Again,
help.
it just feels relevant, like, because we all have grief and we deal with it in different ways, and the way it's depicted with Shuri losing T'Challa, it just feels relevant. Like, you can't say that you've not been in that same position,
No, definitely
because,
not.
like, people are and have been in that position, so I love that. And in terms of her character, I mean, I know what you mean about the first film, where she's just she doesn't really have anything to do. She's just sort of there. But with this one, she's like being shot out of a cannon as now just the focus of the film.
Mm-hmm.
She actually has development. She has an arc, and her portrayal is just absolutely cool as hell.
Yeah. No, I think it's really good. I know obviously the film in the marketing tried really hard to try and to try and hide who was going to be the next Black Panther, but it was always obvious as to who it was going to be. Like,
Yeah.
like as soon as they showed who was top billing, like we know it's her. Which look, full disclosure, before the film's release, I didn't want that because I didn't like the character. But the character's far better here and is completely justified in becoming the Black Panther. That being said, a couple of things. One, I really like the fact that she does not want to do it for most of the film. In fact, doesn't want the Black Panther thing to be a thing at all. It's like a relic of the past. It should be left there. I was like, that's quite nice because, you know, when everyone else in this film is about the tradition, especially with the mother, Queen Ramonda, she isn't. We even get that at the beginning after T'Challa's funeral, and Ramonda burns her funeral clothes as a sign of moving on, and she was like, no,
No, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that. So we always knew that was going to come back into play at the end, but I genuinely thought that maybe you're not actually going to do the Black. Oh no, wait, of course, of course you are. The other idea I thought was the Dora Milaje was going to be disbanded and was going to be replaced with the warriors of that all becoming Black Panthers. So just be like, rather than just one Black Panther, there's lots of them. And I thought maybe that's a way of doing the legacy a little bit different because Shuri is very different from T'Challa. They do a very good job with that. I didn't mind regardless, but I honestly thought for a second, because I know in some of the trailers it was suggested there might have been multiple Black Panthers in it, but that was just because the VFX were a bit iffy. Especially because you could see Shuri's one has like the little dots on her helmet, much like the makeup that she has in the film. And then I think there's another one where it was just completely empty, but it was just because they hadn't added it in. But initially I thought it was going to be like that, but as I say, by the end, she absolutely owns the mantle, to say the least.
Definitely. I mean, everything from, like, especially with the grief stuff, I'm pleased that they went in a more serious direction this time around and not just some comedy shtick.
I mean, like, there is comedy, but it's kept very minimal.
Very, very minimal. I mean, like, when it works, it works. But again, like, it's not just filled to the brim with comedy, like, as other Marvel films have tried to do, where they just try to make everything utterly hilarious. Mm-hmm. She-Hulk being a prime example of that.
Yeah.
But with this, it's a serious situation. Dealing with grief, like, why would there be comedy? But, like, the comedy that is used is to sort of enlighten the characters and, to give us a little chuckle. I mean, I saw it in the cinema today, when the comedy bits happened, people were having a bit of a giggle at it. Mm-hmm. But that's because it was used appropriately.
Yeah.
Didn't feel forced. It was just given to you at ease.
No, definitely. And that feeling of grief, as I say, that's used not just with Shuri, but also with Ramonda, who's then put in the position of, I'm now the Queen of Wakanda. I might have not wanted to be, but here I am. Obviously, she dies. I kind of figured that was going to happen, because that's, for one, it's a very standard superhero thing where it's like, you lose the parents, it pushes you somewhere else, because I think Shuri needed that voice telling her to do one thing out of the equation for her to actually move on.
Yeah, it was like definitely like pushing the boat out for that bit, wasn't it?
Because, as I say, Ramonda is all about the tradition of Wakanda, which Shuri isn't. And that pushes her for when she creates the synthetic heart-shaped herb and she goes into the ancestral plane, much like her brother, and faces Killmonger, which I really liked.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I didn't mention this when we did our spoiler-free, we did our quick thoughts on the first film. Killmonger was a great villain.
He bloody was.
Both these films have been really, really good villains. Really, really solid. Because you really buy them as characters. Like, you don't agree with what they're doing, much like with Thanos. But what makes him work and Killmonger is that you completely buy why they're in this mindset. You
Yeah.
completely buy why they are who they are.
When it's written that they actually, like, when they, like, their whole evil scheme, you can buy it. I think that's when it works. But when you get other films that are just, like, really generic villains with the most generic, like, evil scheme ever. But with this, it just works. Like, with Black Panther as a whole, it just works. And Killmonger was great villain. And, you know, seeing the little cameo of him, it's brilliant as well. Like,
Yeah.
the ancestral plane, I thought, okay, that's really good. I like what you've done there, Marvel. Well done.
But I think it was really clever, especially for Shuri, because that does put her in a different position. So that when you get into the third act and she's fighting Namor, it's not for a good thing. She wants to murder him, like properly, just like.
Well, yeah, because the whole message of
unapologetically.
the third act, what I certainly took from it is that, you know, vengeance consumes you. Which is exactly what it is. You know, vengeance consumes you as vengeance consumed Killmonger.
It's actually interesting that in reality, it's actually the similar arc that T'Challa has in Civil War with Zemo, where even he says something along the lines of, vengeance has consumed them, it will not consume me. So it's quite poetic, really.
Oh, yeah,
because
definitely.
Because also Shuri's a kid, so naturally the immediate reaction is going to be, I'm going to kill you.
Kids are influenced easy.
And it's already established early on, especially when they talk about how if she moves on from the grief, she will burn the world because she wasn't able to save her brother. So it's very much in line with her character. She just needed that extra push from Killmonger. I honestly thought for a second they were going to try and make him out to be like the good guy, and I was like, please don't. Like, and at first I thought, okay,
that whole interaction, I was just like, I was a bit worried for it because I thought, well, like, she's just gonna turn into Killmonger. But then, like, it's the whole scene is split up a bit. You know, we get like a bit of the Killmonger Shuri, then it goes to like another scene. Then it's like revealed that, like, I'm not my brother and I'm not you. Like,
but
I made this decision
I also
for
like
myself.
that it isn't the case where she just goes completely batshit or she just doesn't listen and is just perfect and flawless, because I've had enough of that. I've had enough of that kind of characterization, not just in this franchise, but in franchise movies in general. It's really good. It's really three-dimensional. But let's talk about Namor. I'd quite like to talk about Namor because we haven't said too much, because he's one of the most charismatic villains I've seen in a while in this franchise. He's really like, he's got like a really likable sort of feel to him. Like, even when he rocks in, he's like, oh yeah, you're clearly going to murder everyone, but he's got a bit of charm to him.
Oh yeah, I mean, when the trailers obviously came out and we saw it, we thought, okay, this is like the first on-screen time we get for Namor. I'm not going to say like his whatever the place his name, because I can't bloody.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, Namor the Submariner,
They
but
never
like his actual
call it
name.
that because it's just
No.
silly.
It's just, no, I would have hated if they did. But yeah, like, even when he's like first showing, I think it's Shuri and the Queen, her mother, are just, you know, they're taking a break. They're trying to deal with the grief. This is where I think she does the ritual, her mother, with the funeral. And then Namor just emerges from the water. And it's
like, ta-da!
How did you get here? And then, like, again with the charm, he seems like really charming at first, and then like it just goes into like a really threatening tone. I'm like, oh, okay, then bring me the scientist, otherwise I'm gonna, you know, tear Wakanda a new one. I'm like, all right.
I do also like how
you were what army?
Yeah, I do like how arrogant the Wakandans are with the whole thing of, well, they're never going to get through, because they always assumed, based on their history, that vibranium only came from Wakanda, and even just like an offshoot of line of like, well, it was a meteorite, it probably split up and went into the ocean as well. That's it. I like that. I like how it's not like some really convoluted reason, it's just a case of, well, it's a meteorite, that's what happens. It doesn't just stick in one direction, it'll go elsewhere.
Yeah. I'm glad they just went with like a simple explanation of it. Wasn't some overcomplicated answer. It's like, well, meteorite crashes, splits, ocean carries it.
And at least
Makes
it's not
sense.
Yeah, and I like how it's not Atlantis, which it is in the comics. I know that, but I know that it was done purely because DC got to Aquaman first. So I think it would have. I think We probably wouldn't have got an Aquaman in DC, or actually DC probably still would have done it anyway. But Marvel was quite happy to like, yeah, we've already changed up enough. Let's do something else. I do know that Namor was always in the script for Black Panther 2, even when it was done before Boseman passed away. So he was always supposed to be in it. And obviously in this instance with him, he's there because Wakanda's revealed themselves to the world. People are now looking for vibranium. That puts him and his city and his nation under threat.
Risk.
So his reaction is pretty realistic. It's not nice and it's not right, but you totally buy it. And for a brief moment, I did think just ever so slightly when he goes to Shuri and is like, you could side with us. I thought, I actually think you might. Not entirely, and you'll change at the last minute, but I genuinely
Well,
thought
I think it's the
that.
development of the character, because obviously she has like a hard ass time. Like, she's had hell on earth, quite literally. Mm-hmm. So like it's no wonder that she won a side, because she just wants to not feel the grief. She wants to just get on with life. But how can she? Because these guys are the bad guys now.
Yeah.
As it's revealed.
Revealed.
Wasn't expecting that, to be honest. Like, I was expecting just like like generic sort of like bunch of like eco-terrorists get their hands on vibranium. Wasn't expecting.
It was weird because I did mention this before, but I hated how obsessed the Wakandans are with vibranium in the first film. But now it actually retroactively makes it better, because it does show how arrogant that nation actually is, despite it being presented. Because the whole point of Wakanda, it's like, it's a facade. It's presented as one thing to everyone else, when in reality it's this. It's like that.
Yeah.
It's presented as like a technologically advanced empire that's basically perfect. No, they're all arrogant and basically idiots. And that's technically what almost leads to their downfall. Like, honestly, that invasion of Wakanda from Namor, with just like flooding the town and stuff. I will say this actually. I did a friend of mine that went with us to see it last night. Surprisingly enough, I actually have other friends beyond Dan, which is frankly weird, to be honest, because I
Imaginary friends.
Wow, imaginary. So I drove to Lanchester with my imaginary. Weird. It's like, there you go. Oh, he wasn't there. Oh, anyway. He actually made like a funny comment on how, considering how advanced a nation Wakanda is, and yet there's still slums along the river.
Yeah, I was like that as well.
What are you playing at? Like, Jesus, everyone should be should be rich beyond anything in these films. Like what?
I was like, well, surely like Wakanda being like the technologically advanced country, state, whatever you want to call it.
Capitalism.
It literally is.
It still exists in Wakanda, like, honestly.
Look at the thing with I'm gonna butcher her name up. Bloody hell, Danai Guraya.
Okoye. Just go with that. Okoye.
Yeah, okay, Okoye. When she's deranked, she basically becomes like this povo civilian. Mm-hmm. I'm like, so Wakanda is basically just capitalism? Yeah. Question mark, period?
That's 2 weeks in a row we've had to mention that bloody thing.
But yeah, I think that was pretty funny. But I mean, the whole invasion thing, and you see like the civilians just getting absolutely
terrifying.
Murked. I was like, holy crap!
Like, I honestly thought for a second that are they actually going to destroy Wakanda? Like, I thought, is this actually the third act?
But it's sort of like foreshadowing.
Like we've still got a while.
I think it's actually during that bit where obviously he faces against the Queen. Basically states that you have. Deliver the scientist, or I'll sink Wakanda and stuff like that. It kind of like foreshadows it, considering what he does.
Yeah.
Just floods most of the country.
Mm-hmm. No. I mean, that entire invasion stuff was really good. I also really like the way that he flies. That's actually like really different. How he sort of like bounces on the wings and stuff, as if it's like skates or something. I was like, that's really funny, but it's also really badass. Like, it looks really, really cool.
It's not like some generic superhero thing when, they just take off with, like... It's not like a Superman or Hawkman. It's just, like, actually different for once. Like, characters just don't levitate like he actually, like... It's kind of realistic, in a way.
It's also fun when you think that Nemo is actually a mutant. So we have another X-Men connection before the X-Men actually rock up again. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with that. But yeah, Nemo was really good, and he survives. Like, I was like, please don't kill him. Like, I want him to come back. And while he's still sort of, he's still a villain, but like his mindset has shifted because he too, much like with Shuri, his reaction to grief is to take it out on the rest of the world, and that's exactly what Shuri wants to do.
Again, the third act is all about vengeance, and then it's the realization that these two characters have now come to realize that vengeance has consumed them. I think they even I think it's Shuri that when she has the upper hand on him, basically says like, vengeance has consumed us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought for sure that like Shuri was just going to absolutely murk that fish man.
Well, excuse me, this film was directed by Ryan Coogler, not Zack Snyder. Dan.
Like when I think when she goes Wakanda Forever and like obviously I think she manages to ignite something and just burns this entire back. I was like, okay, Shuri just grilled that fish.
Jesus, Dan.
And then I was like,
bringing the skewers.
The povos of Wakanda will feed
crumbs
tonight.
And everything. Ooh, some chips as well. Oh, this is British.
But then I was like, yeah, the director of this film isn't Zack Snyder, so I'm like, yeah. So I'm pleased that like they did the whole thing of vengeance has consumed us, and that he's still the villain in some ways, but his mindset changes, as you said.
Yeah.
I think I think it's like just as the film ends, like I can't remember the bloody character of it, but it's like his right hand person creature thing. It's like, well, basically, I was like cringing when you surrendered to Wakanda, and he goes, well, we have an ally.
Yeah. One thing I will say about that fight, because I did mention before in the spoiler-free bit about the VFX, I'm pretty certain, once again, that the Letitia Wright is just wearing a motion capture suit for the majority of that. I don't think there was ever an actual suit on set. Because it's like that in the first one, because like, you look at the behind the scenes and you see the costumes that they made for Michael B. Jordan and Chadwick Boseman, and they look fantastic. And then the final film is just covered in CGI. And it's like that here again, and it's like, there's not a reason to do this. Like, if your character's going to be doing something that's so unrealistic that you have to put it in CGI, why don't you just, I don't know, not do it? Like,
I would have thought it would make more sense. Like, when you have scenes where she's in costume and just talking, like, if you were in costume, that would be fine, because surely it would cost less than, like, where's the logic in that? Like, CG if you're doing like a fight scene, stuff like that, but why have CG when you're literally just having a conversation with somebody aboard a ship?
Well, yeah, because even that bit when the Wakandans are going off to fight, and like Shuri's watching them and she talks to Nakia, played by Lupita Nyong'o, who's really good, really like in the film. And the entire scene looked really unfinished. Like, it's so obviously in front of a green screen, it's really starting to piss me off. Because fair enough, you can't shoot in Wakanda because it doesn't exist, but just like shoot it in front of like a mountain range. Like, America's full of it, there's loads of them. Just like shoot it in Canada or something. I know it's not America, but you know what I mean. Like, there were better ways of doing it, and still it's sad that both Black Panther films have had that. But yeah, that speaking on the ending, as I say, it's left in a really good place. Like, I'm happy that Nemo survived, because there's potential for him in the future. I mean, because I know that in the comics he's kind of presented as a bit of an anti-hero at first, and then becomes like...
Yeah, he's definitely like an anti-hero. I mean, I haven't read too many of them. I mean, I think he makes like appearances in Marvel Mystery Comics. That's where I've read it in.
I'm fairly certain...
He's definitely like an anti-hero.
Well, I'm fairly certain that he's actually the first Marvel superhero in the comics before it was even Marvel. So it's like, he's always like ancient.
Could be. Yeah.
I mean,
it is ancient. I mean, those mystery comics.
Stuff.
Those mystery comics are like from the 40s and stuff. So it's
1930s, I think, as well.
Fucking old.
So it's it's a long time coming, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do next. But as I say, I honestly thought that that they would have done something slightly different with the Black Panther mantle and how it could be anyone. But then that's kind of the thing for Spider-Man, where like anyone can wear the mask. The Black Panther thing is
Yeah.
a bit different because it's a fancy plant that makes you super strong and stuff. And I've never been big on that, to be honest. Like I always thought the whole Black Panther thing was kind of similar to Batman, frankly, where it's just like the peak of physical possibility, really. Which actually I should reference the fact that we lost Kevin Conroy this week, as we briefly mentioned in
Yeah.
Batman. That was
Well,
that
'cause
just
I
came out of
actually
nowhere.
shared,
I could have
I
cried.
shared the, I let you know about that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, because it was
No.
just everywhere. I mean, it was so sudden.
Not to like go off on too much of a tangent, but I just started reference. I just like rest in peace, Kevin Conroy, easily the best Batman voice ever. Just is, always will be. But yeah, I always felt that the Black Panther character would have been more like that as opposed to just a superpowered being.
Yeah.
But here it works better. I quite like it.
Oh, definitely. I think that's probably why I prefer this one over the original. I mean, again, I like the original, but it just works a lot better in this film, I think. Mm-hmm. It's not just like, oh, we've chosen you to become Black Panther.
Ta-da! Just
Ta-da!
like, it actually feels meaningful because she's actively choosing it as opposed to the film's telling her. So,
And the whole thing of like she's like a non-believer in the tradition, and then throughout the film, the grief-stricken's even more. She almost comes to believe in the tradition. I mean, hell,
And
she
even
practically
then,
does
it's
at the
still-
end.
yeah, because I mean, even then, it's still about moving on from the tradition, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we see that illustrated so well when they go to the cliff face and they're all about to do the sort of like the traditional fight to determine who's worthy to lead Wakanda, and Shuri doesn't show up because doesn't need to.
Yeah.
Like, has no interest in doing it. If she doesn't want to lead, then she won't. Actually, that's a good point. We haven't actually referenced her at all. Riri Williams, otherwise known as Ironheart, who in the comics, when she's introduced, is like, oh, it's a discount Tony Stark. Great. Because she just basically is. All right, and that I quite liked it. She
Yeah.
was very, she was basically like almost a discount Shuri from the first film, where she is just making quips and being annoying but likable annoying.
I mean, I knew that. I mean, again, like my limited knowledge of the comics, she's basically, discount Iron Man, as you put it. I mean, even like the suit and stuff like that, it's very Iron Man-y in some way.
The suit. I like the first one quite a bit. I think it's
Yeah.
really cool looking, but the third one, I'm like, this feels very anime. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, it feels like.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, granted, I'm
Yeah.
saying that as someone who hasn't watched much anime. As in, I've seen episodes of Pokemon when I was a kid. Does that count? And I've seen a Transformers series that was technically an anime as well, but though there was a plenty of Transformers references in this. Jesus Christ.
I just kind of wish that, like, well, we'll say Act 3, because that's when the suit is shown. I just wish it was more Wakandan instead of Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, it would have made sense if it was more Wakandan, seeing how she's fighting for Wakanda. Like, she just kind of feels like Iron Man in a way, like she's just there.
Yeah.
But obviously she's not. I think that just makes it worse, because the suit does look like an Iron Man suit, especially with the red.
Yeah, and definitely with the not so arc reactor. Because
Yeah.
I know she's getting her own series, but there's also you also getting the Armor Wars film, which is obviously tied to Iron Man. I feel like this is going to be like definitely a topic of discussion for a future episode of this podcast. Is there too much emphasis on Iron Man, even though the guy's dead? Like, because there's so much. I mean, you look at the Spider-Man films; they're all connected to Iron Man in some shape or form.
Well, it's like Homecoming. This is why I'm really mixed on Homecoming, because it's like, well, is it a Spider-Man film or is it a bloody Iron Man film?
Did you see how much money Robert Downey Jr. made for that film per line? It was like
Yeah.
It was like in Batman and Robin when like Arnold Schwarzenegger made millions based on the amount of lines that he said, and it was the same with Robert Downey Jr. I'm like, Howie, like Jesus.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger has like some of the corniest lines ever. All right, everybody, freeze.
No, chill, Howie.
I was close.
The fact that I knew that properly and that's really bad.
Well, that just
Ugh.
goes to show that you clearly have an erection for this film, doesn't it, Regan?
Jesus. Oh, it's frozen. It's an icicle, Dan. Oh my god, where on earth did that come from? Oh, anyway.
So that's why they call you Mr. Freeze.
No. And play the
Mr.
Ivy.
Popsicle.
No, anyway, we're not talking about Batman and Robin and a Black Panther bloody review, Jesus. So you do have at the end, Shuri does burn the funeral clothes finally. She's finally been able to move on. It's a bit annoying how the trailers do actually show the final shot in the film with her like crying in front
Oh
of
yeah,
the sun.
the trailer is like really like. I think if you had not seen this, it does reveal a little too much. It never really spoils, but I don't really like the fact that everything's just mixed in. Like you get like.
I mean, I think it did a good job of not really telling you the plot, but I just always hate whenever the final shot on the film is shown in a trailer. Like Sony was really bad for that.
Don't mention
really,
those
really poor.
bloody
I wasn't
clowns.
talking about Morbius. I was actually talking about Venom and Amazing Spider-Man 2. Anyway, but I like that she does that. But of course, mid-credit scene, we have Nakia come back and it's revealed that she has a son that she had with
Because
with T'Challa.
brief interruption here. I think it's just before something happens, the Queen tries to tell Shuri that, there's something you didn't know about T'Challa.
I feel like it was that. I can't think of anything else it could be beyond this, like, he was actually like a massive dick or something. Which I thought,
he was a genocidal maniac.
Like... He was horrible, actually. I hated him. No, we have a little son who's also called T'Challa, which at that point I was like, I don't know if I like that. It's like, I totally get why you would. It's like, I really, really do.
Quite an emotional scene. Like, I mean, it hit me in the feels. My God,
I definitely smiled. I was like, that's really cute. That's really, really cute. And yeah,
and you can see like Shuri wailing up again. I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna end up bawling my eyes out here.
Mm-hmm. And as I say, it's a mid-credit scene that just adds a little bit. It doesn't feel the need to set up anything. I mean, yeah, we are going to see this kid again, of course. But, but even Nakia says, we both agreed to raise him away from the traditions of Wakanda and the throne.
Yeah, because I think she mentions like the pressure and stuff like this, like the pressure of Wakanda.
Yeah, so by no means are we expecting to see this kid become the Black Panther. In fact, I actually think it would be a very clever idea to not do that. In fact, I think you could bring this character back years later when he's older, and if there's like, maybe if Wakanda decides to go to war with like someone else and he's sort of like the bridge between the two. It's a bit like with Superman and Man of Steel, he's like the bridge between two peoples. I feel like that's what they would end up doing if they decide to do that, but quite frankly, they don't really have to.
No, I think it would be fine if they just sort of stuck with it, We don't want him raised by the Wakandan tradition. We just want to live our own lives outside of Wakanda. I would like that.
Yeah, I am curious as to what they will do with the future. I mean, I'm sure we'll see more of Wakanda, especially in the next Avengers films that come out. Was it Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars? Is it Secret Wars?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. And obviously now we have Shuri as the Black Panther. Whether or not that sticks, we don't know. Because I still feel like Shuri's a character might be like, I'll just do this for a little bit and then just relinquish it.
Yeah, because I mean she's all like sciencey and stuff. Like I mean like even like the intro with, T'Challa. Like she's desperately like working on finding something to cure him. Like there's all this like DNA and like lab stuff, and I'm like, okay, you're very sciencey. And then you become Black Panther, so it's like, are you just sort of having Black Panther as a temporary thing until like a new leader of Wakanda is chosen and stuff? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll be very curious to see what happens with that. But I am actually quite happy to say that I am actually looking forward to seeing what they do next with it, because I think especially with the first film, it was a bit difficult to get too excited because we know they're going to be back in Infinity War, and, well, considering it was a two-part, we knew something was going to happen anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I do know that originally if Chadwick Boseman hadn't passed away, Namor, as I say, would still have been in it, but it would have been dealing with, it still would have dealt with grief. That was still going to be the core theme. In reality, it was going to be for T'Challa, who, was gone for 5 years, and his kingdom is now, it is what it is, like 5 years on, and he's missed so much. And it would have been more about that. And I was like, that sounds quite interesting, but it doesn't sound nearly as interesting as I think.
It's not nearly as investing, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it would have been interesting, but I don't think it would have been as investing. Like, compared to this, where like you instantly feel for these characters, you feel emotionally connected to the film. You feel for Shuri, you feel for the actual situation that's going on. I mean, it just pays such a loving tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Like it.
Oh, absolutely.
It just feels so, like, I don't know what the word would be, but it's just so, like, loving, I think. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, even when the film ends, it's like in, I think it's, I can't remember what it bloody says. I only saw I've got a memory like a goldfish, I really do.
Dedicated to our friend. I think it was.
Yes, yeah. Friend and associate Chadwick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just like...
I thought that was brill.
Yeah. Frankly, I'm just happy that the film is able to stand on its own 2 feet without the aid of T'Challa, and it does prove that this sub-franchise of the MCU, it can absolutely continue on, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do next.
Oh, me too. I mean, this was, as we said, like, this has just got to be like the best Marvel film of this year, like.
Yeah, definitely the best thing we've had in 2022. In terms of my rating, I gave it a 4 out of 5, so great.
Yeah, I think I would have gave it the same. Obviously, my letterbox is just strictly for horror films, but
Yeah, I noticed that. I was looking on yours, like constantly, just like he hasn't even said he's watched it. Oh yeah, because he's only classing it as horror. Like you, absolute, it's just disgusting.
Well, you see, like, I originally had 2 letterboxd accounts here, audience, but, like, switching between the 2 was just so bloody annoying.
Oh, wait,
so I was just like, right.
Wait, hang on a second. So you didn't actually delete the other one?
I disabled it.
Oh. So I can't actually find it still?
No. It's in the void. It's in the void of letterboxd disabled accounts now.
Fine, I'll just...
So I just use, like, letterboxd for my podcast for Graveyard Chit Chat, so I just log all my, shameless plug.
Yeah,
films and
yeah.
stuff like
I
that.
was gonna do one for this one, but I couldn't be bothered.
Like I like superhero films. I do watch other stuff apart from horror. I just don't log it in Letterboxd.
I don't blame you.
Let's just get that in the open.
But yes, that has been our spoiler-free and spoiler-filled thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. As you can tell, we were both very happy with it. Very much enjoyed it. And it's nice that the MCU does end with a nice film. Like genuinely a nice film.
It's not... I'm just glad it hasn't ended with, like, a generic Marvel film again. Like, I'm just pleased it's doing something different.
Yeah, because
I knew anyway, because Black Panther is very different in itself anyway.
Because even looking at 2023, you've got Ant-Man 3 in February, which I'm being very, very careful with. Like, the trailer looks vaguely interesting, but it does not look... I've got issues with it already, and it's not even out
yet. It's all about, like, the quantum stuff in this, because from what I've taken from this film, Regan, is basically they just get trapped in the quantum realm. That is pretty much all I've picked up.
Ooh. Yeah,
Spooky.
basically. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy 3, again, being very careful with. And you've got the Marvels as well.
Hold on, isn't there like some? I mean, it's not like a feature film or anything like this. I think it's like the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special or something.
Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. That's out. Actually, I think it's out this month. I think it's out next week or something. I think.
Yeah, I don't think it's a feature film. I mean, it could be.
No, I think it's only like an hour long or something. I think.
Yeah.
But it's got like the Guardians coming to Earth and they meet Kevin Bacon. I'm like, what are you doing? That being said, Groot looks amazing.
Is Kevin Bacon going to try set them up with EE contracts?
Oh, yes, he is.
Like Groot's just like in an EE store. Oh, for God's sake!
I'm Groot. Yes, you are, sir. Yes, you are. 24-month contract. I'm Groot. Oh yeah. No.
Grooty has just picked up a 24-month contract with unlimited data for just £45 a month. I am Groot.
Please stop. Yes, as it. That is our thoughts on Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I really hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, you know, the usual, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. You know, any sort of support we can get, that would be really appreciative. Next week, we are not talking about Doctor Who. We've got one more week. Off that, Dan's staring at us, well, glaring at us, and giving us eyebrows. It's very, very interesting.
Mixed messages.
Oh, very mixed messages. I'm like, is he happy or is he not? No, we will be celebrating the 15th anniversary of Assassin's Creed. No, we're not going through every single game. We haven't played every single one.
No, we're just going through like the more. I think it's like just the games we've played. So we're not doing like a chronological order or anything like this. We're just going to
we're just picking like the highlights that we have from that franchise. But just talking about games again, which is nice. So look forward to that next week. But until then, it's goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.